Hey guys, it's Jodi, and for you guys who don't know, I go to Parsons in New York and I am studying fashion design. So I'm currently in the second semester of my studies, so I'm still a first year, but I thought I would do a little video on things that you should know before going to an art school, because I know decisions are gonna come out soon, people are gonna start committing, and I watched these videos before I committed to any schools or like even to Parsons. Obviously these do vary based on the school you're attending or planning to attend, but this is just like, I try to pick pretty general things or stuff that I've noticed when I've been in school, and I have it like down in the little notebook, so I'm gonna be referencing that. But yeah, so let's get started. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory. If you're an artist, you know materials are extremely expensive, and that's not going to change when you're in school. The school is not going to provide you materials. You have to buy everything yourself. The most that the school will offer you is probably like a student Adobe Suite account, which I do get at Parsons, so I get access to all the Adobe platforms. However, physical materials like pens, painting supplies, anything, like even for fashion stuff, I have to get all my sewing stuff like by myself. So I would say like the first few months are gonna be the most expensive, because you're gonna be getting stuff that you need for basically the entirety of your time at school. But I would say after that, it can easily range up to almost $100 a month, depending on what your major is and what projects you're doing and what kind of art you're doing. That's around like a good guesstimate that I would say of how much a college student would spend on supplies. Like I know for fashion, fabric is not cheap at all. Like one garment can cost easily up to $300 in supplies. So that's just something you have to consider, because even it's just added cost. Second is that there is not gonna be like any sort of campus or social life. Like especially if you go to an art school like Parsons, where you are in the city, the campus is just, there's no campus. It's just buildings that you sort of go to, and there are no like school sports team or like official organizations. There are like clubs and like sort of associations and stuff like that, but at least speaking for on behalf of Parsons, our organizations are not super strong, and it's not something that you meet like super regularly. Where like I know my friends who go to like a normal four-year college, they're a part of like frats and sororities and like cultural organizations, and they like meet pretty frequently. But that's not the case, at least for how it works in Parsons. And because you're in the city, like there are no sports teams. So if you go to an art school, you can't be expecting to be at a football or basketball game, because that just doesn't exist at an art school. Another thing is there is absolutely no work-life balance. And okay, that's kind of an exaggeration, because I do feel like I do have a pretty okay like workload. Like it's manageable, but you're going to be worked to your limit. Your professors are going to be pushing you extremely hard, because when you leave school and join the industry, they're going to be working you like 10 times as hard. So it's sort of like a little sneak peek into what being a part of this industry and community is like. So definitely, if you don't have that like sort of natural passion for art, or the will to be slaving away at something and like working on something that you're super passionate about, then I would say that maybe art school, you need to give it another, like you need to consider it again, because, or give it more consideration, because you are going to be constantly working on art, and you are going to be losing sleep doing art, building off of like the cutthroat like environment of art school. Like I don't want people to think that all my professors or like all the art professors out there are super mean and super strict. Like that's not the case. I feel like I've been pretty lucky with my professors so far. They're all very understanding and respectful and motivate me to improve and learn in a way that's very constructive for me. But they are also extremely honest, and they expect you to be doing like giving your 110%. They expect you to be doing extremely good work, and with that you have to be prepared to hear negative things about your work, which can be pretty hard, especially like for art, because it's so subjective and you can have poured your like entire heart and soul into something, and sometimes people who just look at it quickly or they don't understand your process or story behind it, they might not understand it, so they kind of like disregard that and might talk in a way that isn't particularly nice about your work. But you have to take that with a grain of salt, because again, in the industry, that's just what's gonna happen. Like people are gonna be extremely honest, and if you can't deliver, they're gonna pick the next person who can. And another thing is like I feel like my professors have been pretty nice. Like I feel like most of the judgment or tension comes from like classmates or like people in your school. And I've heard so many times where people have looked at other people's works and have been like, oh, I could have done that but better. So you just have to be prepared for people saying things like that about your work, and it can be pretty disheartening and kind of like rude and offensive, but you kind of just have to brush it off, because if you don't hear it from them, you're likely gonna hear it from someone else, and it's probably gonna be worse. And all of your classes in art school are gonna be art-based, at least for like your required core classes that you need to graduate. Again, I don't know if this is the same for like other art schools. I'm just speaking like based on Parsons. So every year it's broken down, and based on your degree and your pathway or major or whatever, you have certain like certain courses you have to fulfill and credits you have to fulfill, and all of those are art-based. Even though we do have like seminar and lecture-based classes, you're focusing on like the art aspect of it. So like I took like a history class, but that was focusing on like the evolution of like objects in history and sort of like art history. So there's always some sort of like a artistic liberal like aspect in the classes you're taking. But I do know most schools offer liberal arts courses. Like for Parsons, we offer like language classes and just like even just normal just like journalism classes. So depends on the school you're going to. Obviously it's different for everywhere. Just know that you're gonna be doing a lot of art. But like the good thing is, if you don't like science or like math or stuff, you basically don't have to touch that in art school like at all, at least from my understanding. I know some people, depending on your major, if you're in a more like businessy one, you might have to take like stats or some sort of a math class. And then even though you are going to an art school, you are still gonna have non-art credits you have to fulfill, which is where AP and IB credits come in. So if you're in high school right now and you're like taking AP or IB courses, I don't know what other like systems there are that could apply to like art schools or like schools in America, but I know AP and IB are pretty like common. And if you do take AP and IB, you should still send your scores to whatever school you're intending to go to, because more likely than not you can typically use them as elective credits to put towards graduation. So like for me, I had a lot of my AP credits transfer into my Parsons degree works. So there are a lot of liberal arts electives and liberal arts credits already fulfilled by my AP credits. So, and also you never know which classes you can get out of. So I would talk to like the school and your advisor, and even like I would just send it regardless, because more likely than not you're gonna be able to transfer your credits over. And another thing about art school is that our classes are pretty small. So the biggest class I've been in so far is 17 people, and that's including me. So it's me and 16 other people, like students, and that is the biggest class we have. If you are taking lectures at your art school, it might be bigger because lectures tend to fill up a whole like lecture hall, but I haven't taken any lecture courses yet, and all the classes are pretty small. But the nice thing about this is you get to have a closer relationship with your professor, which is really nice, especially when it comes to like critique and feedback on your artworks, because it just means that they can give you more attention and time and help you, and compared to like if you were to be in a really big class. And another thing about the classes at art school is that the classes themselves, even though they're small, they are extremely long. I have classes that range from like 3 to 6 hours, like studio classes, and some of these aren't even just like studio classes where you're like constantly doing work. Classes are a lot longer in art school than they are compared to a normal college, because you need the time to be able to do art. But again, because you are constantly doing art in class, the hours tend to go by pretty fast, in my opinion at least. Like as long as you're doing work, I feel like the time goes by pretty fast, and honestly it's really nice to have time to do work. But yeah, however, like even though the classes are longer, you don't meet as often. Maybe like at a normal college you would have like a 1 hour class, and you would meet like 2 to 3 times a week, whereas like here you would typically have like maybe a 3-hour class or like a 6-hour class, depending how long the class is. You would only meet like maybe like once or like twice max a week. So the time that you're in class and like physically like in class is still around the same as like compared to if you were to attend a normal like 4-year college. This might sound like counterintuitive, but art school is not as competitive as you think it is. Like, okay, I know I literally just said art school is competitive. Like it is, it definitely is. There is a level of rigor, and there is a set expectation that you are typically trying to meet. But at least for me, I haven't felt like the nature or the community in Parsons is super competitive, but I'm also not saying that it's super uplifting either. I feel like because in art school everyone's sort of doing their own thing, they're more focused on themselves because everyone's doing like a different kind of art, doing a different kind of major. There's not really that sort of support, but also because you guys aren't really doing the same thing, you can't really be judged against each other, which is like nice, because I've never had a professor judge or grade like my assignments based off of someone else's, which is very nice. Obviously this might not be the case for other art schools, so yeah, just take it into consideration that I'm just speaking from Parsons' experience, and I don't really know much about what the community is like in other art schools, but there is sort of this like misconception that art school is super competitive, but I haven't personally felt that sort of pressure, or I haven't felt it to the point where it's super overwhelming. And my last point is that, and this sounds so sad, and I'm so sorry for ending on a kind of negative note, but you're no longer going to be the best artist. Like, I'm just gonna be for real, because art school, it's like a curation of students. They selected the best artists from all around the world and accepted them into this institution. So you might have been the best from where you're from, your hometown, where you grew up, wherever. But when you come into an art school, you are with people who were in the exact same position as you growing up. So now basically you could have started from here in comparison to everyone else where you grew up, but now because everyone else enters here into art school, you guys are all level, you know? So I think that's sort of like something you have to consider, that you're not going to always be the best in your classes, and there's so much for you to learn. But that's why you go to school, to learn more. And honestly, I think it's really interesting to have artists from all over the world in my classes, because you learn about how they make art and it kind of inspires you to make art. This video was definitely not needed, but I feel like it's sort of like a thing I wanted to put out there, because I feel like art school is not really talked about a lot, or at least like the reality of what art school is like, because I think people kind of just assume you go to a school and do art and that's art school, but art school is sort of like a subculture of college life in itself. So yeah, I hope this was helpful or interesting to some people. Again, just take it into consideration that I'm speaking mainly from like my experience in Parsons, like because I haven't attended any other art institutions or have been in this sort of experience elsewhere. A lot of my experience is just coming from Parsons, and if you're going somewhere else, this might not apply to you, so just take that into consideration. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!